This story took place last October in a small town in Ohio. My friend Kyle and I were big into hiking and exploring, so we decided to spend a weekend camping at Blackwood National Park. It's a beautiful place during the day, but the locals always told us to be out before the sun went down. We should have listened. We pulled into the parking lot around 5:00 p.m. It was eerily empty for a Saturday. We grabbed our gear and hiked about 2 miles deep into the woods. As the sun began to set, the forest went dead silent. No birds, no wind, just the sound of our own breathing. Kyle joked, "It feels like the forest is watching us." We laughed it off, but an uncomfortable chill settled in my chest. We set up our tent near a massive, ancient oak tree. Around 2:00 am, I was jolted awake. It wasn't a loud noise, but a rhythmic crunch, a crunch of dry leaves. Something was circling our tent. I unzipped the flap just an inch. About 10 feet away, a figure stood with its back to me. He was wearing a tattered, filthy trench coat. When he slowly turned around, my heart stopped. He had no face, no eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. I woke Kyle up, but by the time he turned on his flashlight, the figure was gone. However, the ground around our tent was covered in hundreds of muddy handprints, like something had been crawling in circles around us. We didn't wait. We packed what we could and ran for the car. On the way out, I saw that same figure again, but this time he was hovering, not hanging, but floating next to a tree, his faceless head following our every move. We made it home, but the nightmare didn't end. A week later, I was sitting in my apartment in Ohio, still jumping at every shadow. Then, someone knocked on my door. Tick, a tick, tick, a slow, deliberate sound. When I opened it, no one was there, but a dirty wooden box sat on the floor. Inside was our broken camera from the woods. When I plugged the card into my laptop, there was a video file I hadn't recorded. The footage showed someone walking through my apartment while I was asleep. The camera lingered on my face for 5 minutes. Then, the person filming panned the camera toward my closet and stopped. When I checked the closet, that same rotting trench coat was hanging among my clothes. I heard a whisper right in my ear. "I told you." It had come back. I tried to call Kyle, but his phone was dead. When I drove to his house, police were everywhere. Kyle was missing. His bedroom window had been smashed from the outside, and those same muddy handprints were all over his floor. I knew I couldn't run anymore. I went back to the woods. I followed a blurred map I saw in the background round of that creepy video, which led me to a derelict, abandoned washover deep in Blackwood. Inside the tower, the air smelled of rot. The walls were covered in hundreds of old photos of people who had vanished over the last 50 years. And there was Kyle. He was sitting in the corner, his back to me. When he turned, his eyes were pitch black, completely hollow. Behind him, the faceless entity rose from the shadows. I realized then that this thing wasn't a ghost. It was a void that consumed people's identities. I grabbed Kyle's hand to pull him away, but his body felt like cold stone. He whispered, "Run, Marks, it's too late." As the black smoke of the entity began to merge into Kyle's skin, his face started to fade away, becoming smooth and featureless. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached my car. By the time the police investigated the area the next morning, the watchtower was gone. No wood, no photos, just an empty clearing. I've moved to a different state and changed my name, but I don't sleep much anymore. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see a flicker of a shadow behind my eyes. Kyle is gone, but he's still out there in those woods, part of something much darker. If you ever find yourself in the woods of Ohio and you hear your name being whispered, don't stop. And whatever you do, never look back. 6 months had passed since I fled Ohio. I was living in a small, cramped studio apartment in Seattle, thousands of miles away from those cursed woods. I had changed my phone number, deleted my social media, and even started going by the name Leo. For a while the silence was comforting. I thought I had finally outrun the shadow. But then, the nightmares started changing. I wasn't dreaming about the woods anymore. I was dreaming about my own reflection. It started with a small flickering in my peripheral vision. It'd be brushing my teeth or washing dishes, and for a split second, I'd see a tall, dark shape standing right behind me in the mirror. But when it'd turn around, there was nothing but the cold, white walls of my apartment. I tried to tell myself it was just dust, a lingering side effect of the trauma. But then, the physical evidence started appearing again. One evening, I came home from work and found a trail of dried, dark mud leading from my front door straight to my bed. My heart hammered against my ribs as I followed the tracks. On my pillow sat a single, old Polaroid photo. It was a picture of me, taken from outside my new apartment window just last night. In the reflection of the glass behind me, you could clearly see the silhouette of the faceless man, his long, spindly fingers resting on my shoulder. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of my room with a kitchen knife staring at the door. Around 3:15 am, my laptop, which was shut on the desk, suddenly hissed to life. The screen glowed a sickly blue, and a video began to play automatically. It was a live feed. The camera was positioned in the hallway just outside my room. I watched the screen in terror as my own bedroom door slowly creaked open in the video, but in reality, my door stayed shut. On the screen, the faceless entity walked into my room and stood over the me that was sitting in the corner. I looked at the screen, then looked at the empty space in front of me. I couldn't see him, but I could feel the air grow ice cold. Then, a voice didn't come from the speakers, but from inside my own head. It was Kyle's voice, distorted and hollow. "You didn't leave the woods, Mark. You brought them with you." I looked down at my hands and gasped. My skin was becoming pale and smooth. My fingernails were turning a bruised, obsidian black. I rushed to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, but when I looked up into the mirror, I didn't see my face at all. I saw a blank, featureless mask of skin staring back at me. I tried to scream, but I had no mouth. I collapsed to the floor, my vision fading into darkness. When I woke up the next morning, my face was back to normal, but there was a tattered, rotting trench coat draped over the chair in my room. It was damp, smelling of oil mud and ancient decay. I realized then that the entity doesn't just want to kill me. It's replacing me piece by piece. Every time I blink, I lose a little more of who I am. In writing this now because I don't know how much longer I'll have a mind to think with. If you're reading this and you feel a sudden chill in the room, or if you see a shadow move in the corner of your eye, you don't bother running. It's already too late. The wounds don't just stay in Ozio. They live inside the people who survive them.